Step number 5, search my heart. I need to search my heart. You see, my heart is deceitful. We have an amazing capacity to be deceived. We can think that we're okay. Well, and everything is wrong. And there are some things that reveal to us the deception of our hearts. One is trials. Trials and tests are there so that when we go into test and trial, we get spilled over like the water bottle. It gets spilled over, and what's inside comes spilling out. So in the test and the trial, what's inside of me comes spilling out so I can see it. God knew it was there all along. He doesn't need to see it in order for him to know that it's there, but it comes spilling out so I can know that it's there. That helps me, who is the one that is deceived, to recognize what's in there. But also disease. Disease that is not inheritance, environment, raw materials, which most diseases are not. Most come from the mind. Disease shows me that there's a deception because the body cannot lie. The computer cannot lie. The phone cannot lie. The clicker cannot lie. The camera cannot lie. The building cannot lie. Nothing that is physical can lie. Doesn't have the capacity to do so. Physical things can transmit information, and can they transmit lies? Yes, they can transmit lies, but they tell the truth of what lie was put into them. So if I type on here, "you are a monkey," and it comes up on the screen, "you are a monkey," well, that's a lie, but the computer didn't lie and your screen doesn't lie. They're telling the truth of the lie that was put in them. So the body tells the truth of what's put it into it. It doesn't have the capacity to lie. It's the mind that can be deceived and lie and then produce the disease in the body. And also we can see the deceitful heart by our treasure. What is it that you pursue? What do you spend your time on? What do you spend your money on? What do you spend your thoughts on? And so on and so on. That all reveals to you where your heart is. Every morning, spend time with God and nature. Review the previous day's thoughts, words, and actions. And ask God, what is the legitimate need of my heart that influenced me to do and say what I did and said? Because you are always pursuing needs. You're always pursuing needs. You're always seeking to fulfill the needs, and so that's the driving factor in the things that you do, is the fulfillment of your needs. So, Lord, what need was I pursuing with this? And ask him, how did my heart deceive me to fulfill that legitimate need, but to do so the wrong way? For example, there was one day I was a new president at the lifestyle center that I was at. I had not been in a president role ever before. And I was leading out on a few committees, and we had a few committee meetings in the morning. We broke for lunch, and then we had another committee meeting in the afternoon. It was another committee, but it had a lot of the same people on the other committee. But anyways, it was another committee, and I was the one that was leading out. Now, there was some interest from the members of the committee that we be more efficient than we had been in the past. And so when we started this committee meeting, I got right into agenda point number 1 so that we could be efficient. And the old vice president raised his hand and he said, "Mr. President, shouldn't we begin with prayer?" And he was absolutely right, absolutely correct. There was nothing wrong in what he did, but I took that, "Mr. President, shouldn't we begin with prayer?" and I made an excuse. And it just came jumping out of me. I didn't even have to think about it. At least I didn't think I thought about it. It was an unconscious thought process that, poof, and this excuse for why I didn't begin with prayer just came blurting out of my mouth. And then I chose somebody to pray. And while they were praying, I was thinking, why did I do that? Like, what was the excuse about? I don't understand this, but they're not going to pray long enough for me to figure it out. So Lord, when we have our walk time, talk time together, remind me about this. I want to understand. And so indeed, the following morning while God and I were walking in nature and talking with God, he reminded me of that incident, and I was like, oh yeah, that's right. Why did I come up with the excuse? And so, it says, choose to come, let us reason together, says the Lord. And so I'm reasoning with him and trying to think, all right, what are legitimate needs that I might have had in that situation? And I thought about it, and after a while, it came to me, acceptance and belonging. Okay, so I needed acceptance and belonging. Okay, those are legitimate needs, but what does that have to do with this situation? And so I kept praying with God and talking with him and asking him about it, and eventually it came to me, you don't need it from them. Oh, I got it at that point. Okay, I see. So the legitimate need of my heart, right, was that I needed acceptance and belonging. That was the legitimate need of my heart. What was the deception? The deception was I needed it from them, the other committee members. And now a mistake, as a new president and insecure, that mistake was pointed out in front of all of the committee members. And so in fear of losing acceptance and belonging from the other committee members, I came up with an excuse for why I made that mistake, to mitigate the loss of the acceptance and the belonging. And all of that thought processing happened just like that. Just like that. But it took me about 35 minutes or so in prayer time the following morning to figure out, by God's grace and with his help, what happened in that amount of time. That's searching your heart. It's searching your heart to understand why. What's the motivation behind? What's the thought process behind that? Because only when I understand the thought process can I begin to circumvent it, can I actively participate with God in surrendering it. Not only when that's the case. So I need that, right? I need that to happen.